UBC, inspiring Uganda.
A very good afternoon to you all. Thank you for watching Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. And as you know, this is a time of the year where a number of decisions have to be made in order to push the country forward. And we're talking about the national budget, which is about a few hours away from being read by the finance minister of the country. But without further ado, allow me to introduce a renowned guest that we have here in studio, Professor Augustus Nuwagaba, Principal Economist with Reeve Consults. You're very welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, our viewers.
I can't exclaim how much you are a resource to the country, and we are honored as Uganda Broadcasting Corporation for always honoring our invite to share some insights on typical issues that have to deal with the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Professor Augustus, we're looking at a budget of about 52.7 trillion. This is an increment from last year's about 48 budget. That means that there are signs of growth perhaps in the back, despite a lot of struggling in the back. Would you kindly first enlighten us on how did we get to 52 trillion as a starting pace?
Yeah, thank you very much, UBC, and thank you for inviting me on this occasion. We are going to have the budget reading tomorrow. This is a budget week, and we want to congratulate Ugandans for completing these years, which have not been easy years because of COVID. The budget for 2023 was really COVID budget, and we want to thank God and also congratulate ourselves for having sailed through and waded through the muddy waters. This budget, which is going to be read tomorrow by the Minister of Finance, is a budget totaling 52.7 trillion shillings. Initially, it was less than that, but there was a call agenda which was brought to Parliament as a result of the need for extra funding of certain sectors which were very significant. These days we are budgeting away from the silo thinking.
Yes.
The previous budget framework was on sectors, but these days we are talking about program planning and budgeting. This was a requirement from the National Development Plan, which we evaluated, and fortunately I was the national consultant also for this process. So we recommended, and the government accepted, that we should stop silo thinking in terms of, for example, Minister of Water, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Environment, and so on. So we said we should have program number 1, which is agro-industrialization. Then you have Minister of Health, you have Minister of Education. We said we should have human capital as a program. Why? Because you find that what you are looking at is a human being which is holistically capable of having productivity. And so we said we should have human capital development as a program, agro-industrialization as a program. And out of these programs, we have 18 of them.
Yes, please.
And this is what we are talking about. They are housed in the Prime Minister's office, and each program has got a desk for M&E, and we are doing a lot of work to ensure that these programs can deliver results, and therefore this budget is 52.7 as we have already agreed. It came as a result of the call agenda or an additional funding requirements from sectors, and we are thinking that these budgets, of course, these are estimates. There is no magic that you are going to raise 30 trillion, as we know from domestic borrowing. Neither is there a magic that you are going to spend 52.7 trillion. If you raise 52.7 trillion and you have it, it may not even be necessary that you spend the whole of it. If you have more revenue of 40 trillion instead of the 30 which is projected, it is good. You may save part of it. It's not that you need to spend the whole of it. And so we have a budget which is really estimates for revenue and expenditure of government. And this will give us a signal on how the year 23-24 will move.
Okay. So when I analyze the budget, I realize that the overall budget has increased by about 4.6 trillion Ugandan shillings. However, the actual discretionary resource envelope has reduced. So given the reduction in the discretionary resources for government entities, how do we plan to ensure that the effective service delivery shall be delivered?
No, thank you very much. We have got a major problem in terms of discretionary resources. You know, when we talk about the Ugandan budget, what we are talking about is surely you need to see how Minister of Finance move around this budget, and when it reaches, especially I used to see it at Makerere, whenever it would reach about 23rd of the month, you would want to see, you would not want to see to go to the office of the Basa. And the reason was, where is he going to get the money for payment of salaries? Same thing with the Ugandan budget. We have got one critical issue, which is debt servicing. Our debt portfolio now is approximately towards 52% of the GDP. Our GDP is approximately $45 billion. So you have more than half of that, which means more than $25 billion. Is debt to which we have incurred. Of course, let's not ask many questions as a result of the number of public investments that we have incurred, including Karuma Dam, $2.2 billion. We are going for oil pipeline. We have these oil roads. We are talking of standard gauge. We have got Isimba, with 600 million. So we have roads. So all these have meant contracting of debts, and the total of these is approximately 52% of the GDP. It is beyond the threshold, but also there is been telling Ugandans to add your fears. There is no magic again in terms of these thresholds. What matters is, what do you want to use this money for? 2, do you have capacity to pay back this money? What we call debt sustainability. And if you can answer those, then absolutely there's no problem.
In the planning, is it usually directly attached to the investments that are made? Say, you know, we're investing in infrastructure, and this road is going to boost economic activity that perhaps will return money that, you know, we put back to debt repayment. Does it work in that way? How does it usually work? It
should, because the assumption when we do a public investment, any public investment must have what we call a feasibility study. A feasibility study is a document which would be able to tell, do we need Kampala Kabale Road? And this means Kampala, Masaka, Mbarara, Ntunga, Mukabale. And this, of course, continues to Kigali, Rwanda. The assumption along this investment is that this road is going to unleash productivity. It is going to boost production. People are going to find a very easy way of taking their commodities to the markets. And world over, this is the assumption. The assumption is that these investments are public investments which should really stimulate demand. And we have been seeing that most of these investments, some have stimulated this demand and others have not, which means simply that you need more than now these infrastructure projects to boost production, to unleash demand, and also to ensure that you can, because factors of production are not only infrastructure. You can have a road, but this road is not maximally used. And I've been giving the example of this very, very good road we have had for quite a long time, this Gangatirinyi road. This has been one of the best roads in East Africa. But if you look along that road, for the period we have had that road, it may not necessarily have translated into higher productivity of that stretch of the road as compared to other areas which do not have that road. Or the productivity, the way we measure it, in fact the simplest way is to measure productivity household incomes on that population after the road has been constructed vis-a-vis the productivity and the income levels of households before the construction of that road. And if you do that analysis, it has come to pass that some of these investments need more than mere infrastructure. You need markets, you need agro processing, you need financing, agricultural financing, you need product development, you need market diversification, you need quite a number of things. As we know, factors of production, you need labor, you need capital, you need land, you need entrepreneur, and land has been a major factor even in the construction of these roads. You don't need only infrastructure, you need more than that in order to unleash, first of all, demand and also create markets, and for such a road to have a return.
So I like the fact that you speak to productivity, but allow me to draw you back a little bit into debt. So if we have our debt financing, our debt status over about 52% of our GDP, okay? What does this mean to the mere Ugandan? And yes, I know what it means for government. It's going to mean restrictive spending and prioritization to, the servicing. But then what does it mean to the Ugandan? A few headlines ago were saying that every Ugandan will have a debt of about 2 million on their head within the next 10 years, which was quite scary, but I would love you to decipher that.
Yeah, thank you very much. The debt is not good.
It's not good.
Debt is not good, even for yourself.
Yes, I understand
for you
that
and me,
on a micro level.
For you and me, at the micro level, or for government at macro level, debt has never been good. Why? When you are in debt, even the Bible says, the Bible says the holder of the debt, the one who is indented, is the slave of the master, is the slave of the creditor, if we go to finance language. So the debtor is always a slave of the creditor. The person who has a debt with the other person who gave you money is the creditor in finance language. And therefore the person who owes, who has money of another person is a debtor. So the Bible says the debtor is always a slave of the creditor, and this is correct because you look at our budget, 52.7 trillion. Tomorrow, which is going to be read, this budget was passed by Parliament on 31st of May. This is the legislated rule. What does this mean? It means that the government is going to raise 30 trillion out of the 52.7. How are you going to raise the 22.7? It is going to be raised in our usual means of monetary policy.
Yes.
Yeah, through monetary policy tools. Some of these will be treasury bills and bonds. Two, it will going to be ready to the external financing. And this will mean borrowing again from either external sources or inside. What does that mean? The moment you borrow, it means you don't have capacity to execute other activities you wanted to do. In terms of language of the country, it is what we call deficit financing. So this budget is a deficit budget. How the country is able to raise 30 trillion out of the 52.7 trillion. The 22.7 trillion, we don't have it. And Uganda Revenue Authority will not raise it. But remember, even if Uganda Revenue Authority cannot raise it, you cannot say as head of household that children cannot go to school. These days we don't have money. My salary is very small. You just looked at yourself. My salary is very small. You people, you should understand. So my daughter should not go to school this year because my salary is very small, or my business is not working well this year. We don't run our households like that either. Neither can governments run like that. As head of a household, you will say, I'm going to borrow. And it's allowed. Why? Because the things you need, especially, let me be very clear. I think the Ugandans should know that we have a difference between needs and wants. I have a bone to pick. I have a bone to pick with people who want to focus on wants. If everybody wanted to focus on wants, then all of us would be driving a Mercedes, you see, should be eating chicken every day. But we don't do that. We focus on needs, and this is what countries should do. As a country like Uganda should be focusing on needs. How? So that if you have a budget of 52.7, the question is, Professor Nuwagaba, where are we spending this 52.7? The answer should not, the question should not be, do we have capacity to spend 52.7? Yes, we have a capacity to spend 52.7. Even if we don't have it, we have already told you we have 30. We shall borrow 22.7. But is it genuine? Let me put the question the other way. Is it genuine that we should borrow 22.7? And the answer may be yes or no. Now, a yes one means you want to, for example, continue with infrastructure. You know, we have been having a very serious infrastructure deficit.
This money to something.
In something good.
You've talked about the Iganga-Tirinyi road, okay, and utilization came to the box. So I'll ask, if we are going to borrow to boost our electricity, what about the utilization side of it? Because electricity is a major factor for production. Yes. So why aren't we realizing the utilization that is much needed?
I think too early to judge, isn't it?
Perhaps. So.
Perhaps too early to judge.
Okay.
If you are going to tell me that we have Entebbe Express Highway, of course also we borrowed to put in place Entebbe Express Highway 22 kilometers, and you can see what Entebbe Express Highway has done. But there are people who are saying, why should we have Entebbe Express Highway? We have our the road through Najana Kumbi to Babeita Babida and Entebbe. Is it good money for value for money that we should have Entebbe Express Highway? No, I think the issue is, if we are borrowing for these infrastructure investments, I think the Ugandans should know that we are not thinking, and I really want us to stop this short-termism. Short-termism. We are not going to construct Entebbe Express Highway because we are looking next week. We are measuring whether the Ugandan population is able to have cars, or how many people are going to Entebbe Airport next month. No. We are looking. This is a horizon planning, this strategic planning, this long-range planning, and we are saying, in case we get investors in the 20-30 years to come, is it possible for somebody to catch a flight? And the answer is yes. So some of these projects are really long-range projects. We cannot measure. They are. Of course, you are right. The utility value of an investment is important as a factor, but this utility value may not be forthcoming. That may not be forthcoming next week or tomorrow. So when we look at the road, a dam, power dam, look at, for example, the Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia. For us, we are talking about Karuma Dam, or 600. For them, it is 6,000. This is 6 gigahertz. You see, which is 6,000 megawatts. And we are talking about Ethiopia. Ethiopia now is the largest exporter, in case you didn't know, of coffee. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Ethiopia being the largest exporter of coffee in Africa?
I thought Uganda was in the recent past.
And these are some of the things which prohibit us. Because if you have ours about 4.7 million bags of 60 kilograms each, of which Ethiopia is number one. Uganda, we are about, globally, I think globally, Uganda, we are about number 8. After Brazil, Ivory Coast, and now Ethiopia. Can you imagine Ethiopia being in front of us? Of course, you have Vietnam. But some of these countries, what has propelled them is really infrastructure, and which reduces the cost of doing business. And we should, I think in terms of long range, instead of judging whether our electricity of 1,000 megawatts is still very, very low. If we are going to attract, suppose we wanted to attract iron and steel investment in Kabali, in Muko. Do you know how much electricity this one ecosystem can take? It can almost take half of that. And then you are saying, Professor, we have a lot of electricity. And no, let's think in terms of horizon planning and attracting foreign direct investment, not tomorrow, but in a few years to come, strategically, so that the country is able to strategically position herself. We now have East African community, and things can move.
Professor, as we sum up debt servicing, I would like to know, is there a scenario where, you know, the country, you know, can minimize borrowing or not even borrow at all and utilize, you know, the locally resourced financing? Say, you know, Uganda Revenue Authority has come up with 30 trillion of the 52. Is there a way we can forego that other 22 and just say, you know what, we're not going to borrow, let us go? Because why am I bringing this? I'm bringing this to the layman who keeps on hearing borrowing, debt, borrowing, debt. So the person is like, why if an individual can check his own borrowing and utilize his own resources?
No, but I think, thank you, this is a good question. But I think let's array our fears. As an economist, you know, as a finance person, because me, I've studied both, it is also not good for not borrowing. You know, people who are rich, you know, countries which are rich, the United States of America is the largest economy in the world, with the GDP of approximately $24 trillion. But do you know the current debt now? Do you know the current debt of US now? 31. 31. You know, that's why Joe Biden is in Congress fighting it out to see whether they can actually even increase the ceiling, because they are about to default. And if America defaulted, you know, if it sneezes, how everybody catches a cold. So we are praying that America cannot default. Its debt is currently almost, you could get 31 divided by 24. Just simple mathematics, approximately 115. 115 to 120% of GDP. In fact, the US debt is more than its own GDP by almost 1.5. Yes, please. And Japan is 200% GDP, second largest economy in the world.
Wow.
Then you have Germany. Then you have Germany, the largest economy in Europe, best economy in Europe, fourth economy in the world. Also like 87%. So the issue is Uganda was only 52% of GDP. I've already told you others are over 100. So the issue is not bad to borrow. What is bad is are you borrowing like now, you and me? Are you borrowing for the giveaway of your daughter or the wedding of your son? That's very hopeless borrowing. Yes. But if you are borrowing to complete your apartments so that you can bring in tenants and tenants are able to pay the other loan, you are developing. You know, you are developing. This is a very, very productive loan. You got the money in the bank not to buy a plot of land and start construction. This is a very, very naive way of doing business. We never borrow to buy land and start a business. You borrow money from the bank to finish your apartments, so that you put in the tenants. Next month, tenants are able to pay and you pay back the loan. This is what also countries should be doing. Okay. You borrow to do something very productive and you are able to pay back that debt. And all of us borrow. All the activities we all do borrow. What we are careful about is what we use the money for. Do we have capacity to pay back the loan? And also question number 3, which many countries do not pay attention to, where do you get the source of money? And the good news is that most of these loans, Uganda has borrowed before, are what we call concessional loans. A concessional loan is a long-term loan whose interest rate is also friendly over a long time and relatively small. But if you borrow from non-concessional sources, it is like the borrowers here have been seeing in Kampala, going to commercial banks. This is a short-term source to have a shopping mall. So you are borrowing from a short-term source for a long-term investment. This is serious. You are going to have problems, and many of them have had problems, and then you are shopping more, which you have not been able to finish because also not knowing at what time do you borrow. Is being auctioned, and you have already sunk there 2 billion. You are going to sell it at 300 million. Why? The bank wants its own money on first value. This is very bad.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as you heard it from Professor Nuwagaba, it's not bad to borrow, as long as whatever you're borrowing that money for is being put to the right use. So, definitely as a country, we understand that, yes, our biggest part of our budget is going to debt servicing, and Uganda is not about to stop borrowing. The only thing is, putting our public service to task to make sure that whatever we are borrowing is put to the right use. However, let's take a short commercial break. You're still watching the National Budget Dialogues here on UBC TV. We'll be back with more with Professor.
Speech reading for the financial year 2023-2024 will take place on the 15th of June 2023 at Kololo Independence Grounds under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. Follow the conversation on the hashtag KnowYourBudget23. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Ebiseera by'okuzaayo abaana mu masomero tebiteekwa kukaluubiriza n'akatono. Eno kusimba nnyiriri mpanvu kano kalipagano ka bidduka. Simanya kuzunga na banka siripsi. Kati osobola okusasula school fees z'omwana wo ate n'okola n'ebirala ntoko ku ssimu ye ey'omu ngalo. Ekikola kyangu nnyo. Nyiga bunyezi *165*8 ogoberera ebikulagiriddwa oba okozese app ya MTN Momo. Ate kati okwekyulwa leero. MTN Mobile Money Uganda Limited erungamizibwa banka enkulu ya Uganda.
Are you ready to celebrate a decade of making a positive climate impact? Join us in celebrating 10 years of Tree Adoption Uganda's mission to reforest and conserve our environment on the 18th of June 2023 at Makerere University Rugby Grounds. For a decade, we have been engaging in various climate action activities, especially tree growing, as well as advocating for combined efforts to restore Uganda's ecosystem. And the results speak for themselves: healthier communities and a greener tomorrow. Join us in our anniversary celebrations and be part of the Change Run for Climate 2023. Tickets go for Uganda shillings 20,000. To participate, visit our website at www.treeadoptionuganda.org to learn more about our mission and how you can get involved. Let us continue to plant the seeds of change together with Tree Adoption Uganda.
The Minister of Finance, Planning and Economics Development will present the 2023-2024 National Budget on Thursday, 16th June 2023. 2 weeks ago, Parliament passed the 52.7 trillion budget. Tonight at 10 p.m. on your favorite program, Behind the Headlines, Timothy Nyengweso is hosting excellent and acclaimed men, women in their respective fields in digesting the budget on the eve of the budget reading. Be a part of the conversation on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Junko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Joko, I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you know is your LC2 chairperson. Of economic transformation, just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government, designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better.
PDM,
My parish, my development,
my life.
The National Budget Speech Reading for the financial year 2023-2024 will take place on the 15th of June 2023 at Kololo Independence Grounds under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy Through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. Follow the conversation on the hashtag KnowYourBudget23.
Remember, you have supplemented very good.
So welcome back. You're still watching the National Budget Dialogues here at UBC TV. With me, WADULO, Mark Arnold. As you know, the National Budget will be read tomorrow by the Finance Minister, Matia Kasaija. We're yet to confirm if he is the actual reader of the budget tomorrow. But right here in studio, a renowned professor, principal economist, Augustus Nuwagaba from Reeve Consults. From time to time, he advises government on several, economic issues, and we are here breaking down a few things that the budget has been touching. And allow me to touch the money that we have so far right now. So we have a 52.7 budget, okay? 30 trillion is the actual money that we are having from our national resources, our revenue collection. And then we have the rest, which is going to come, of course, from borrowing. But let us squeeze down to the 30 trillion, okay? The appropriation, 25% of this is going to be debt servicing, which leaves us then with what? What is the situation? You're going to paint for us a situation on how this 30 trillion is going to be allocated and,
Yeah, thank you, because the way the budget works is that it is a basket of resources. Now, these resources, people may think that when we say 52.7 trillion shillings, and you hear somebody saying, Minister of Finance has cut my budget, this and this has cut my budget. There is no budget cutting. There is no budget cutting. There is no. People think that the Minister of Finance has a sack of sand that is as a shovel and is going to everybody's shovel and everybody. No, it does not. The way government works and the Minister of Finance works. Minister of Finance raises resources in different ways. The Uganda Revenue Authority will raise money, and that's why government also disburses money in quotas. The money that is raised in Uganda Revenue Authority is the money that is available to be disbursed. The external financing, refinancing, and other sources, grants. These grants, which is now going to total to, as we have already seen, to 22.7. These are grants, external sources, borrowing, treasury bills and bonds, domestically and also from foreign sources.
And maybe just to cut you a little short, by the time we say that this is 22 trillion, 22.7 trillion going to be borrowed, are we usually assured that the sources are going to be A, B, and C, or it's usually going to be a process?
We are sure.
Okay.
We are sure that we are going to get A from external financing. We shall get B from borrowing TBs and bonds, and we are going to get this from bilaterals, multilaterals, and so on. So we know.
Okay.
What we don't know.
Yes, please.
We know the quantum and the source of that quantum. What we don't know, and really what happens, is that some of them may not fulfill. Like, for example, when you go to external financing, people may say, through our budget framework paper, that we shall give Uganda, Japan can say we shall give Uganda this X amount of dollars. For these days, budget support is small. Initially, Japan would say we are going to give you this, UK we are going to give you this, US we are going to give you this. But these days, the support is most of it, almost 80% of it, is what we call project support. It's no longer budget support. It doesn't come to the common basket. But Whether it comes to common basket or project support, money is money, isn't it?
Money is money.
Yeah, money is money.
Yeah.
If Kabale Hospital is going to be constructed, or Iganga Hospital, what we need is a what? A hospital. We don't bother. The people in Kabale or Iganga do not bother where the money came from. What they want is what? A hospital. But the government will bother where the money is coming from. And if this money doesn't come, and it was in the budget, the two things are going to happen. It is going to borrow, or there's going to be a budget cut. That's why budget cuts come from.
Yeah.
So it is not that the Minister of Finance, as I told you, had a sack of sand and he was
refused to give you.
and
simply did get
even
the
it was
money.
the shovel was almost in the air, and then it refused and went back. Nothing like that. It means
it didn't get the money.
The minister did not get the money. That's really what it means. It really means it didn't get the money.
So driving you to focus now more on the 30 trillion, we're servicing debt and then running government, salaries and the likes. Yeah, then that leaves us with some other money for the programs.
For running the 18 programs. And these 18 programs have to be run. You have, for example, let's say human capital development. Others can be suspended if you want, but you have something like human capital development. This is education and health. Are you telling me that children are not going to school? Children must go to school, and we have UPE. So the money for UPE is in project terms. Project development is what we call critical path money. It's money on a critical path. A critical path item is an item where you will not get any other activities unless you have achieved that. So you have to really make sure children are in school, and the UPE has been paid. And this is what it is. And then you have other things, the purchase of PPEs. You see, the way we had the COVID. If you go to the central bank, we have what we call the cash reserve. We must have money in dollars even, which covers a minimum 4 months of inputs. Why? Because you can have a borrow. If you have a border as a government, are you going? It's like you go home, find your daughter is sick, and start giving excuses. Professor, can you lend me 100? You cannot do that as head of household.
The allocation towards contingencies, that fund suggests that recognition of potential risks. Yeah,
and contingencies.
Yes,
unforeseen contingencies.
Yes. So, can you elaborate on the identified risks on perhaps how the contingency funds will be utilized?
Now. It is a good question, but very difficult one, because you look here, we are already saying we have got only 60%. Are we together?
Yes,
we
please.
Are saying we can only raise 60% of the resource envelope, which we want, with the projected expenditure. Okay, the projected expenditure envelope, we only have 60% resource envelope to meet 100% expenditure envelope. So we have 40% shortfall. We don't have a shortfall.
Yes,
it's already a deficit budget. And now we are talking about unforeseen contingencies. It's like at home, you reach home, your dear wife has told you we don't have sauce. And for you now, you are saying you should buy a bottle of wine now.
I think sauce.
I've already told you there is no sauce
in a home setting. Sauce might not be a contingency. Maybe
but now, for you are saying,
you
are saying you should buy a bottle of wine, and what I mean, the money is not enough, even for basic. And if we are seeing a contingency arises, we have got landslides, we have got Katonga. Katonga was not in the budget, as you all know. We have troops, as we speak right now, in DRC. You are sure this was not in the budget. We have lost our Garant sons and daughters in Somalia. Was that in the budget?
No.
It was not in the budget. These are serious unforeseen contingencies. Now, in budgeting, we rarely do that. We rarely budget for unforeseen because we don't know them. It is like insurance. But when they come, the moment they occur, you have to deal with them. You must address them. Katonga must be put in place. And you are not talking of putting a few poles of timber. You are talking of billions of shillings to make sure Katonga can be in place. So running a government is not as easy as people it's as people think, as you can see. As you can see, running a budget of a country is not as easy as you think, as you can see. Now we have demonstrated it. So you need to understand a number of things, but the way it runs, it is not very different from the way also we run our homes. This is what I really want to emphasize. You need to have money. My mother used to call it akashawo kenzibizi in the Ruchegaro Nyankore. Enzibizi means, those who love football, that Van Dijk is Omuzibizi. Ramos is the defense, people in defense. These are Bazibizi in Uganda. So Omuzibizi, or defense number 4 on the football team, are the defenders who make sure that the strikers number 10 and 9 and number 7 in the wings do not easily score. So my mother used to have that. She used to call it a shower yenzibizi. In case she would have some money, in the case of a rainy day, in case something happens, she defends herself, and this government must have it. But now in the situation, and we normally have it. I've already told you we have money in the central bank which covers, it is import cover, an import cover.
It's called
an import cover.
Import cover.
Yeah, in the central bank, it is usually like in hard currency, the dollars or pounds equivalent to 4 months import, import value. Why? You can have those contingencies unforeseen. You have Ebola, you have serious issues, COVID-19. Had we budgeted for COVID-19? No, but all doctors needed the PPEs. So that's the money we use usually to ensure that this can happen. And once that is done, then you look at the other things that you need, critical ones: education, health, immunization of children, and then you come with the others, security. Issues of security. People have been complaining, government taking a lot of money on security. Why do you fund? Security is security. There is nothing that can happen unless there is security. You cannot have investment.
The former saying that money runs away from insecure places.
From insecure places.
Okay.
Insecurity is the foundation for whatever we are doing. It's like you are in a house, in the flat, for you are in the 16th floor. Or in Burj Khalifa, you can say I'm in Burj Khalifa, I'm on 140th floor. And you are forgetting that Burj Khalifa, the reason why you are safe in 140th floor is because of the foundation of this Burj Khalifa in Dubai.
Okay.
So you need security as a foundation for an economy, and an economy that has insecurity, civil conflict. That's why you have South Sudan, DRC Congo, Somalia. You want to calculate the foreign direct investment that goes there. Which countries have the highest foreign direct investment? It is US, followed by China. Followed by China. Why? These are countries that have been stable for decades. How stable? Both in terms of the civil environment,
civic space,
civil environment, as well as economic environment. The money is stable. The civic politics are stable, and people have to take their investment there. Why? They know that the investment will be safe. So we need stability and also economic environment which can attract foreign direct investment.
Thus security, right? So allow me now to take you a little bit into local government. Revenue collection seems to be there seems to be an improvement in revenue collection from local government. However, there are still a few gaps here and there. But also, I also noticed that local government has been empowered, and the community is also out there, especially through programs like the parish development model. So money is actually going into the people out there, and this is one way or another going to boost productivity from out of central government. Where, because a lot of expenditures have been coming within central government and the local government has been forgotten. But now my question is, how do you think we should empower local government more to enhance revenue generation and promote local level development initiatives?
Yeah, thank you. I think looking at, I've been studying about 126 countries, including Denmark, including Libya, even before Gaddafi. I looked at 126 countries, including those countries which are highly decentralized systems, Malaysia, Denmark, these are very, very highly decentralized, even in Libya before, and Uganda, which has been the darling of the entire global decentralization. Now, when you look at the financial position, the fiscal metrics of these countries, there is no country which I found that is having a local government that stands only on itself. Tezabadeyo, teziriyo. It is not there. These countries are not there. What does this mean? That local governments depend on the central government. Yes, including largely. Nigeria, yes. including US, on these states. Maybe in the US, apart from California Washington, Texas, Washington itself, Colombia, New York. But if you look at states like Kansas, even Florida, these are states still which depend on the central government. And therefore, decentralization, the way we conceptualized decentralization here in 1997 was fiscal decentralization, administrative decentralization for planning, administration, finance. And the reason was, let's empower local governments, and we transfer. That's why we use the word transfer. Actually, fiscal transfers. It is the fiscal decentralization. FISCAL. Fiscal decentralization. Why did we want that? We wanted to ensure that districts can have powers not only to spend, but also to raise revenue, like you are saying. But as we have realized, and as it has been demonstrated, governments, all governments, it's not only Uganda, all governments, including the US, the most lucrative revenue sources remain with the central government. What are these? Like in Uganda's case, where do we get money? Where does the government get money? In Uganda's case, most of it, Uganda, it is not direct taxes. Never. No, it is not direct taxes. It is largely import duties, where we are importing cars, taxing of petroleum products, and then of course these days we have this MTN and Airtel. But even if you look at the taxes of MTN and Airtel, it is really imports of the equipment they are using and the other facilities and so on. So most of the taxes for governments are import duties. Okay. But to develop, of course, highly industrialized countries like US, of course, there's now direct taxes, manufacturing.
So, in other words, local government, one way
will always depend on the central government. But when we conceptualized the Local Government Act and the way it is stated and the way we worked on decentralization, in the beginning, late 1990s, to be specific, 1997, our assumption was that at the end of the day, local governments will eventually develop this capacity to be able to raise local revenue. And I remember we had discussions with my colleague, you remember Chiwanoka Musi, at that time in local government in Mukono, then he came to PS local government. The reasoning was, let's learn swimming, not only in the swimming pool, but from the deep end. So that districts, because the argument was, should we give these districts money when they are young and they do not have capacity to look after this money? But the answer was, if you do not, how are they going to develop capacity? The tasting of the pudding is what? In the eating.
So do you agree that we're looking towards that trajectory?
This capacity has not been developed.
So we're still
these are how many years now? From 1997 to 2023. Right. The capacity was towards 30 years now. Because the act came in exactly now, almost 30 years. The capacity has not been developed. Why? While the also assumption was to empower local governments, the fiscal decentralization has not taken place exactly the way we conceptualized it. Because if you look at the money which remains at the central government and the money which is fiscally transferred to local government, these days it's not more than 10%. It is not more than 10%. Of course, central government will argue the same way the government argues for financing agriculture. that the agricultural budget, which is never more than 4%, is because the Professor, stop thinking in silo. Why are you talking about agriculture? Why are you talking about the local government? Don't you know that when the government now gives money to UNRWA is constructing Kampala-Kabale Road, or Kampala-Kisoro Road, and isn't this Kampala-Kisoro Road passing through? This is a very good argument. Isn't it passing through Kabale? So did you want now, this money now which the government gave Minister of Works, which you are calling the central government, is actually money. The Minister of Works is not going to spend this money in Entebbe and Kampala. It is spending it on roads which are passing through local governments. That's why I love program planning and budgeting, which is not silo thinking, which is not sector, and it's looking at the program. So, in conclusion, I think the physical decentralization, first of all, has partly not taken place the way we wanted it, because local governments still get very small monies which they have. But two, local governments do not have capacity. I challenge any local government out of 137 districts currently which are operational. There is no single district out of the 137 that is raising more than even 5% of the district budget. And the district budget range between 10 billion to big ones like Jinja, Kabale, Mbarara, 50 billion, Mbarara possibly 70 billion. But from whatever small districts, 10 to 70 billion, large ones, no single district is raising just 5% of that revenue. No, tell you. And the reason is districts do not have capacity to do this, but also the central government fiscal transfers are small. Why? There are also things to do as we would have already seen at the central government level: infrastructure, human capital, financing of education and universities are, of course, again large, more than the things which local governments may want to see in a silo thinking, in a silo way, as Kabale, as Iganga district.
Yeah. So, Professor, as we sum up our conversation, I know a lot of people that listen to us out there be like, "Oh, you technocrats, you're talking about this percentage, this percentage." Na hizi njagala chireta wansi omuntu wa wansi eno budget egena muyambe tia but bajizanyiremu batya. What should be the role of the citizens right now in embracing this budget?
Yeah, thank you very much. In the current budget, government is spending approximately 1 trillion shillings in the parish development mode. This is the first time government is, you can talk about the prosperity for all, you can talk about NADS, you can talk about all these programs, but this one is very unique. Why? For two reasons. One, 39% of the Ugandan population as we speak right now, 39% of the about 6 million
people.
Okay, let's say 40. Every 4 out of 10 of the 46 million, get 46 million, but divide it into groups of 10. 4 of those groups of 10 of the 46 million do not touch money in a full year. This is the position. That's now, the reason why we have parish development mode is the one reason, which Ugandans must understand, is that this number is a very bad number and must reduce.
So people need to
touch money and engage in economic activity. For two reasons. One, they will improve their lives. Two, government also will get revenue. 3, once government gets revenue, these are the same people who need medicine in the hospitals. So number one is that this budget, if it succeeds in providing 1 trillion shillings in the parish development model, we hope to at least transform, change the lives of these 1,000 people.
So PDM number one.
Number 2 is that 18.5% of the budget is going to be spent on human capital development program, which is education and health. According to international commitments, health is 15% from a budget declaration. Agriculture is 10%. The government is spending about 3.5 to 4. Education and health are taking almost 20% of the budget. This is particularly UPE. Government spends a lot of money in UPE, people are going to argue that the UPE, the schools are not teaching well, and so on and so forth. But it is important to have a child in school. You see, the child be in school and do nothing in school, rather than the child really remaining at home. So issues now of quality can be worked on, but when the child is where? Is in school, which is a very, very big achievement, that the child is in school.
Okay.
So government is spending on human capital development, on education, on security. And you cannot argue that you are the budget on funeral war. Or funeral war here, because you are secure. We have got now a lot of security on northern bypass.
Yes, please.
And whom do you think is going to fix that?
All right.
So these are issues which we move with every day, but somebody thinks the budget is somewhere with Matia Kasage and the president in the air, in the sky there. The budget is with you. It's with you. Move with it. You are secure. You are agriculture. You are good financing. With children in school, it is the UPE. We have got parish development model. This is the budget for you and me.
Yes, being a journalist, of course, when you go out into the field, people be like, don't booze of your budget. So Ugandans, this is a call out to you to just really engage yourself into public service activities, you know. Professor Nuwagaba has distinguished the parish development model as one of those, you know, programs that government is trying to make sure that money gets into the people, you know, the hands of the people, directly into the people of the hands, no matter where you are, West Nile, Karamoja, Kabale, you know, Mbale. This money is going to be there, and somehow in a few years, like you said, we don't plan for tomorrow, we plan strategically for a horizon, you said? Yeah, so a few years from now, you're definitely going to see some changes in your pockets. But also, another key issue he has mentioned is school. Banagi mutwala abana ku masomero. Amasomero jegali government egasasulidde, abasomesa babasasula, bateekamu ebitabo. Yes, waliwo amasomero agatali bulungi naye try to ensure that at least omwana wo agenda n'asoma kubanga bagamba obutasoma buluma okuze. So please don't wait to regret. And then also health, health in Luganda is ebyobulamu. Woba olwadde, yes, tukitegeera nti wali amalwaliro gayinza okuba nga tegatuuka buli wamu, naye wobanga ofunye omukisa okulaba nti ebyobulamu oba hospital ekuli kumpi nga ya government, gendayo ofune obuyambi. Ate nammwe abakozi ba hospitals, we are asking you, please be welcoming to people, because I've been to some certain government hospitals whereby the attitude is not really welcoming, you know. So please, we are working together to build this country. Professor Nuwagaba, we thank you for, you know, honoring our invite. It's been a really, really healthy discussion, and I pray that Ugandans pick a leaf or two from this discussion. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, and we look forward to the national budget tomorrow.
Thank you very much, UBC.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.